I've always been a big fan of empire building games. Those games where you're marching across territories, fighting other players, building up your army, and gathering resources. The big thing about those games, though, is they usually take a really long time. You're gathering those resources, you're waiting for the exact moment to strike, you're matching up with other players and trying to read their moves. Well, the game that we're going to be talking about today can give you a little flavor of those more complicated empire building games, but it can do it in 8 minutes. Well, today we're reviewing 8 Minute Empire. So, the gameplay for 8 Minute Empire Legends is pretty simple when you get down to it. You start off every game with your pieces on either the starting region or the selected remote region where everybody has to start on if they're going to not start on the starting region. I have this set up for a 4 player game, and I kind of have all the bells and whistles out on here. You don't have to use all of these different modifiers, but I'm kind of letting you see what you can play with and the different variants you can add. Every turn is going to consist of you purchasing one of the cards that's in the market area up here and kind of doing what they do. So you can see the cost right here is based on the position that the card is in the market. So if you want to get the Dire Dragon here, wouldn't have to pay anything. So since every turn you have to get a card, in if you don't have enough coins, if you've already spent them, then what you would do is just get that free card. If you wanted to move down the row, then you can spend up to 3 coins for the last one here. And in order for you to spend those 3 coins, it better be a pretty good card here. But sometimes there might be that just perfect card that you want to get, and make sure that you can get it off the board either so your opponent can't get it or so it can kind of fit into your deck. Each of the cards has a couple of things that they're able to do. One is the ability that you're able to use when you purchase the card. It's like, say, this one allows you to place 3 armies down and you're allowed to destroy another army. This actually has the same one. And this one allows you to place a city. This one allows you to move armies, up to 5 armies in this one. And this was another place army movement, another city. But each card then also has an ability towards the top that you can use on subsequent turns. So some may have no abilities, some may have abilities like this. This is flight, this wing symbol here. I can show you. This wing symbol is means that you reduce the cost to move over water, so like a path like this, by 1 per flight with a minimum of 1. And that's actually a really good ability because usually in order to traverse water in like one of these paths here, you would have to spend 3 movement per space. So if I wanted to move from this space up to this space, I'd have to spend 3 movement for just 1 unit. But the flight really cuts down on that cost. In this case, the Dire Giant is immune to attacks, so that means he can't be targeted by the Destroy Army action. The Stronghold has +1 victory point for each Dire card that you have in your possession by the end of the game, and that means, so like if you had the Dire Giant, the Dire Dragon, and the Dire Eye, there's 3 different Dire cards out there right now. At the end of the game, you would get a victory point for each one of those cards. That's a really effective way to get victory points at the end if you can collect some of these victory points per kind of cards. The This one allows you to place an army down every time you use the place army action, so you can kind of accrue those and add extra actions to your turn. You also have something like this. This has an elixir symbol up here. You can have either 1 or 2 or 3 up here. And this only factors in at the end of the game because whoever has the most elixirs at the end of the game gets 2 victory points. And that can be really big. So that can kind of make the difference between winning the game and losing the game based on the area control factors that you have. So you're trying to use these cards in order to kind of move around the board. the the movement allows you to take these little armies here and move them from space to space to try and end up being the one who controls the most areas on the board. So, say green here has spread out enough, he would control all of these territories here because he has the most cubes in them. He doesn't control this one because that one's kind of equal among everybody, but if he had one extra cube and say it was like something like that, that would be, he would control that one as well, even though there's another person in there. That's pretty much the principle behind the game. You're kind of moving your armies around the board and trying to control as much territory at the end. If you control an entire section here, an entire region, then you get a bonus point. You're trying to kind of keep the cards that your opponent wants out of your opponent's possession and get the cards into your deck that you want. And there are some variants that you can play with. There's a series of different like tiles that you can put on the board. So it's like mystery items like this, and they each have different things where they allow you to place extra people or move extra people, or like there might be specific items that have specific effects. There's like this one, this is like a dragon, you can fight a dragon. And things like the Citadel makes the space the Citadel's on worth extra points. This is the Bandit, which steals coins from you. These are the portals. These portals you can like, it's act like these spaces are next to each other, like they're adjacent. So you're kind of managing your resources based on your moving. You don't have a lot of coins. It's kind of hard to get coins unless you find cards that have the effect that give coins. The other variants are like you might play a game that's got the leaders in them, and so like you have different ones like the White Knight. When you build a city, also add an army plus 1 victory point per control of island with 3+ regions. This one, keep enemy armies you destroy, start with 5 armies on the starting region, plus 1 victory point if you have 3+ forest cards. Take 1 extra card at game end, no action. Bandit King, when you destroy an army, steal a coin, also 1 victory point for all of your armies are used. So I mean the artwork's pretty cool, and that adds a little bit of variability based on which one you get and then which cards come out, if they're actually relevant based on the things that come out. So that's the mechanics behind it. It's not a particularly complicated game, but it's a game that has a lot of variability based on the extra things that you're using, whether you're using the leaders or not, what cards come out, and kind of the tactics that you use. It can be pretty cutthroat because you're definitely looking at these cards, knowing what your opponent's looking for, and or at least having a good idea of what they're looking for, and then you might not be even getting cards that you might want. You're just getting cards that you know your opponent wants. And that's kind of the cutthroat nature of it. I mean, yeah, you can destroy each other's armies, but I feel like the cards and grabbing the different cards is kind of the most cutthroat part of the game. So now let's go back up top and I'll talk about my final thoughts on the game.
So the first question that people ask about this game when they see it is, does it actually take 8 minutes? No, not really. It's a game that it comes about as close to 8 minutes as you're going to get with the kind of mechanics that this game has. You're probably looking more like 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, depending on like the people you're playing with and kind of their different play styles. But, 8 minutes is a lofty promise for the game to make, but it gets close enough in my book, because picking up the game as somebody who plays a lot of different kinds of games, especially like area control games and empire building games and resource or set collecting games, I didn't really go into it with the expectation that it was actually going to take 8 minutes. It was years ago that I played the original 8-Minute Empire, and it wasn't as good as this one. I definitely like this one a lot more. I like the fantasy kind of reskinning of this versus the resource collecting in the original. In this, you're you can get cards that will give you the points where you can collect different types of creatures based on the names that they have, versus in the other one you're collecting different resources, and based on the amount that you have of those resources you get a certain amount of points at the end of the game. I also like that this one has the leader, and I like the different variations that you can play with it. The kind of mechanics that you see in this game are kind of like a baby version of something like a Tyrants of the Underdark. Tyrants of the Underdark is a game that I absolutely love, and just to kind of get a little bit of that flavor in a game that's so short and simple and easy to teach other people, it's a great gateway game into area control and deck building to a certain degree. I mean, there's not a deck building to the degree where you're actually drawing cards out into a hand to use every turn, but it's still gathering cards and getting to use the abilities off the cards and using those cards to manipulate kind of how you're moving around on the board, which is exactly how Tyrants of the Underdark works. I would definitely recommend this game if you can pick it up. It's usually not particularly expensive, and the artwork is great, and they've just recently released an expansion, and I'm going to be reviewing that really soon on the channel. So if you like what you see here, leave a comment down below, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified of everything I post in the future. And if you check the link down below in the description, you can pick up your own copy of 8 Minute Legends. And it's no additional cost to you, and it really helps out the channel. I'll catch you in the next review.